Well, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Arranged Conversations. And today we have none other than our friend, a mentor, a teacher, a leader, a young elder within the church, a man of many accolades, Eight, Region 8 Principal of the Year. Um, so much can be said about this man, but I'll let him speak on himself a little bit. Jakeb Goff, how are you today?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
First and foremost, I'm like I said, I'm a Christian. I'm a believer. I try to live my life in a way that glorifies God. And I'm a husband, a dad. Got two boys at the house. James will be 13 in December, and Joseph
Jeez,
turns 10 next week.
that's
And
amazing.
got a baby on the way.
Congratulations,
So
congratulations.
this old man's gonna try to raise a daughter this year. So we'll see how that goes.
I mean, I think we got the tough part out the way. The boys are a little hectic, so
No,
hopefully this one gonna go flipping go karts.
yeah. Right.
You recover pretty good from that one.
Yeah, Joseph has recovered from his
That's
little
good.
go-kart accident. Blessings on that.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, no, it's always exciting at the golf house.
I'm here for it. Oh, remember you? I think it was you and Mr. Fry had skydived for
Me and Mr.
an event.
Johnson.
Mr. Johnson. Oh, it was Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, that was
Cool.
a tax test year.
Got you.
So, well, it was tax, I guess back then. Wouldn't start yet. It was
No,
just a tax
yes.
test.
I think we start my ninth grade, so that would have been
Yeah,
cool.
that was a crazy thing we did. Survived. Probably
It's
wouldn't
always
do that
fun.
again.
Seriously, man, I
It
have.
was exciting, but now I'm a dad.
Okay, yeah, you got it. Be
Probably not a smart
precautious.
choice to do.
Yeah.
I joke with people. Everybody's like, "Well, what was it like?" I said, "Well, I jumped out of an airplane without a parachute." They're like, "What?" I said, I was not technically wearing a parachute. I was wearing another guy.
Yeah. Make it a little bit more exciting. Well, we can go ahead and start some of these questions, man, and I think they're pretty interesting. First and foremost, I wanted to, before the actual questions, ask, just in general, what's your occupation and what do you do for work?
Well,
Career.
currently, let's say I guess I would say I'm in my third career at this point. I worked in television right out of college. All the stuff that you're doing here.
Yeah.
Worked for a news station. Did work for documentaries. Went back to school to be a teacher.
Okay.
To teach history is what I was actually
Seriously?
to teach. Right. I love history, and
That's
I actually
cool.
never taught history because of my background in TV. I was able to get a job teaching technology and video production. And after that, decided to be a principal. So currently, I'm a principal out at Redwater Intermediate.
Nice, nice. So, how does it feel switching over school districts?
It was a little bittersweet. Most of my career, except my very first year, I taught on the Arkansas side over at North Heights, where I went to school. And I moved over to Liberty Islo. So over at Liberty Islo, started there in 2007 and worked my way up from teaching to assistant principal to
Nice.
principal, and met my wife there, and we had our boys going to school there, and then COVID hit.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and so the year COVID hit is the year I decided to resign, and I took a job as a consultant.
Really?
Out at Region 8. So I worked 2 years there, working with other schools in our area that were in school improvement. We had been in school improvement. It's a change of pace out at Redwater. It's a smaller school district.
Mhm.
We only have 200 on my campus.
It's not
At
bad.
Liberty Islo, I had 100, 700 kids.
Yeah.
A little bit younger age group where I'm at now. I've got 4 kids. So it's
Okay.
a little different. I get to be more the dad style principal. Out there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
That's pretty cool. It's exciting. So, you going to the, is that the middle school or the elementary?
We call it the intermediate.
Intermediate?
It used to be
Okay.
called the middle school. They actually have an elementary that's pre-K through third grade.
Nice.
And then I have fourth, fifth, and sixth of the intermediate. And they have a junior high.
Okay.
So they have seventh and eighth with their junior high.
That's not bad. And my little sister, I think she's going to the sixth grade this year, but she was in fifth grade last year, obviously. But she was like, that school is so huge. And I was like, I mean, yeah, It is, but you lucky you go here instead of one at Texas High or TSI,
Yeah,
TISD schools.
yeah.
So,
At middle school over at TISD, they've got a lot.
hmm I went to Texas High my freshman year, um, and it was a big change. Not only going to high school, but
Yeah.
going to high school on a college campus was like crazy. I was like,
Right.
"Well, this is fun." I didn't stay long, so it's okay. But that's pretty cool. So, where did your foundation with Christianity begin?
So I was raised in a Christian household. You know, mom and dad, we were at church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and any other special meetings. So I had a good foundation. You know, we did. Parents read the Bible at home, read to us. Both my sets of grandparents were in the church as well. We
It's
actually
pretty
went to
cool.
the same church as my mom's parents, so we kind of got to see them a lot. But you know, I was always raised around Christians. I mean, that's just what we did.
Right.
I will say when I was in my college years and 20s, you know, I prodigal son way and
Yeah.
kind of kept one foot in the church world. But Jacob was driving the car and you know, made a lot of bad decisions. Amazing how when you let God run your life, things work out a whole lot
No,
better.
seriously, yes, sir. So having that one foot out, one foot in, what led you to stepping fully back into the?
When I really just realized that I was not where I wanted to be, like not the life I wanted to
Mm,
live.
yes, sir.
I was get to that point where you just have to surrender everything. I was in my 30s, wasn't married, was lonely, uh, kind of drifting and no
Right.
purpose to my life. So
Yeah.
I remember sitting in my room at the house and on the floor praying and crying, and I just said, "That's it. I can't do it anymore.
Well,
So
that's
whatever
beautiful.
you want, let's do it." And shortly after that, got married, started having kids, career took off, and here
that's
we are.
that's nice. I love that. That's pretty cool. Um, how do we display Christ-like characteristics to those who don't fully follow God?
Um, I think that's really kind of what Jesus showed us when he was here on earth was that idea of you just meet people where they are.
Hmm.
You love them where they are. Um, there's a fine line between not judging people, but still telling them the truth. Like, and, you know, like be truthful with somebody in a loving way. That's what it is. When you walk through life, that smile on your face and that joy in your heart, people are drawn to that, and they will start asking you, why are you so happy? You know,
Yeah.
like everything seems to be going wrong, but yet you're happy about the situation. That's God gives you opportunities to witness. You don't necessarily have to go out there beating everybody over the head with the Bible. You just you live for
Yeah,
Jesus, and the fruit comes from
I agree. How can we, as young believers, factor in time for God when the world overloads us with a tech savvy society?
that. Okay, so that you know, I think about that a lot. Raising kids right now is that's the devil's trap. He keeps us busy,
Yeah,
and he keeps us busy with things that aren't necessarily bad. But when you're so busy that you don't have time to spend a relationship with Jesus, then that's what it
yeah,
is. So you think about the fact, like with my wife, you know, if I'm so busy that I don't spend time with her, my marriage suffers. There's lack of communication, and
yeah.
there's things that come in between us. So it's the same thing with Jesus. When we're so busy that we can't spend time with Him, quiet time, prayer time, reading our Bible, those kinds of things, that's where the problem comes. So I think it's all about priorities. You can still do things and include
Hmm.
but that's part of what relationship is. You know, with my friends, when we hang out together, you know, we can still be doing the other things, but we're spending time together. So it's finding that balance in there. Hobbies, you know, it's all the good things that keep us busy. My oldest son plays travel soccer, so we're on the road a
Yeah.
lot doing that. But there's still in the hotel room. We can still read our Bible. We can still have our quiet
Yeah.
time. We can still listen to worship music while we're traveling. It's there's a misconception that God and Jesus are just here in this church building,
Yeah.
and that's not the case. In fact, the devil wants to trap us in this church building so that we don't go out and be the light outside.
I never heard it in that perspective. So there's a term, I don't know if it's in the Bible or not, but it's a family that prays together stays together. So how do you structure? I know you mentioned a few ways that you do get that relationship with the children. How do you structure that time aside during the busy schedule?
Well, my wife is a kids pastor,
Mm-hmm.
so we're here
Cool.
a lot, right? Yeah, so she's over the kids zone here at Church on the Rock, and she's got second graders all the way up through sixth grade. Our boys spend a lot of time here. Actually, since she's not teaching, she's doing that. She actually homeschools
Okay.
our boys, and then our homeschool program has a Bible component to that. So there's
Nice.
daily Bible reading with them. We're very upfront with them when there's something that comes up. We pray about it, and we tell them to pray about it. They're having a bad day, like my oldest, if he's moody, he's hitting that preteen
Yeah.
stuff, so he gets moody sometimes. So my wife and I have both told him at different points, hey, go talk with Jesus about that.
Yeah.
Deal with that, because you're not who you're supposed to be right now.
That's pretty awesome.
So,
How can you implement that inside of your profession where it's not equally as accepted?
Right. So, well, yeah, I mean, there's a misuse of the idea of separation of church and state, obviously. So people think that means we can't talk about God inside of our workplace for those of us who work in a public setting, like public school. Thankfully, most of the places I've worked and been, there's a lot of Christians there, so it's not a big deal. School board still prays before school board meetings.
Nice.
You still have that, so that's what I'm looking for when I'm working the place. But you have to be careful. I always, anytime I'm talking with somebody, if it's to a point where I know I need to say something, I'll say my beliefs are, and I kind of start that way. As a Christian, my beliefs are X, Y, Z. So what I'm about to tell you comes from my perspective, my beliefs. So I don't shy away from it. If I'm going to get fired for something, it's going to be for talking about Jesus. So, and I'm fine with that. He'll take care of me no matter what it is. But I've been able to witness as a teacher. We talked about how we do that through how we live. So I've had people approach me. I've prayed with students. I've prayed with parents when they've come in and broken down in the office before. So invited people to church. So I mean, it's still, you have to be wise in how you do it. I mean, you don't want to go out there and try to lose your job over it. But it's just one of those things. I listen to the Holy Spirit, and when He says do something, I try to do it. Because if I don't,
you're held accountable.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Right.
And one of the questions later on in the interview was, how does, because I'm not as informed on separation of church and state as much as most would be. So what is, can you elaborate on that phrase a little bit?
Yeah, so way back in the day, I think it was John Adams wrote a letter to one of the churches talking about the fear at the beginning of our country's foundation was that the government would try to establish a state church like England had done, the Church of England. So he used the term that there would be a clear wall or a separation between the church and the state, meaning that the state could not infringe upon our beliefs as Christians, because that's why we were one of the reasons our country was founded. That has been warped, the devil's good at that, takes that idea to then flip it the opposite direction. And now it's used to say that the church can't come in and influence the state. And that's not how our founding fathers were very much believed that
Right.
that God and Jesus should be running our country. I mean, that's how they set it up. Public schools used the Bible to teach students how to read. That's how they taught at the early days of our country. It's only been the last, I don't know, 70, 80 years that switch has happened.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I never knew that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the government isn't allowed to fund a church, correct?
Correct.
And a church is exempt from taxes due to
Currently.
nonprofit.
Yeah, currently. Yeah.
And that plays a factor of
Right.
being statement separation of church and state.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if a church were to fall in a position to need funding, would they be able to reach out to the state to be able to receive help, or?
No, I mean, that's the whole purpose behind, like church, we're supposed to tithe, right? That's part of the commandments that we're given. So, members of churches are the funding for the churches, for the missions and things that they want to do. So,
while we're on the topic, also, one of the questions are, how do you feel about the phrase, or could you elaborate a little more on when Jesus stated that when Jesus went into the temple and was upset that they were selling and all that good stuff at the temple, and he said, "Don't turn my Father's house into the marketplace."
Right.
But in the society that we're currently in, that it's a fashion-driven, highly influenced society. So we got, I noticed the coffee area over here. So how do we separate driving a sales market versus a fundraiser, I guess?
So I think it's in how the use and the heart behind it, right? So, you've got some mega churches and you've seen it before, pastors, big influential pastors who have been influenced by the money. That's driven their life, and then there's usually scandal and all that comes with that. So I think it's just holding yourself accountable as a congregation, as a leader in a congregation, to make sure that you're being wise, you're being a good steward of the funds that are brought in. Our church here, we're big into missions. Our goal is to, we want to be able to support as many people locally and across the world as we can to spread the gospel. And so I think you have to be upfront with that. Now, we still have a very nice building. We still, you mentioned the coffee bar. We have that. It's in, there's a balance there between, I don't know, getting people to come, so you have to present yourself in a way that there's a hook, like there's a hook to get people here. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. People come to check it out, but the goal is that when they come to check out a place, they encounter Jesus, they encounter the Holy Spirit, and then that's the deal. Like we just open the door, and then God takes it from there. So that's kind of how we approach it here. And most places that I know, that's how they are. They're, hey, come and worship with us. But here's Jesus. Like, let him change you. We're just here to introduce you.
I can vouch for that. A few years ago, I had the opportunity. I woke up late, actually, and this is how I eventually ended up coming to church on the Rock.
I remember that morning. We prayed, bro.
Man, yes, sir. That was beautiful. That was one of my most vulnerable moments. Was an altar call. Always feel the need to, because I live in a world. I'm still in a position in my life where I have one foot in and one foot out, but I'm trying to fully step in. But that was one of the times where I was 3 feet out and nowhere close to being in. And I woke up that morning and just really said that I wanted to go to church, but I woke up late, so my church had already started service. And Luke Smith, do you know Luke?
Mhm.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. We used to play baseball back in 8th grade. Um, and he invited me here before, so I thought about that and looked up the church service times, and
Right.
I think it was right at 10:30, and I hopped up, got ready, and the church started at 11. So I came over, and it was a guest pastor. I can't remember his name, but that man preached a word, and I was literally in tears. And I knew that God was drawing me to come up to for an altar call, but I was so nervous, being that it was my first time in
Right.
a decent sized church, and I was just like, I'm scared. And then here's this man that looks so familiar, and I was like, "Is that you, Lord?" But it was Mr. Art. It was you, and I was like, "That's close enough for me." So
Yeah.
I felt comfortable to come up, and I was like, "Man, that was beautiful. That was a great experience for me as
And
well."
you think about that, like, we have 3 services here, and each week I may go to a different service, and I'm not always on the altar team. So, God orchestrates things. That was just a day where he knew you were going to be here.
Yes, sir.
So he had me. I went to that service, and
Man,
I decided to go up front and be on the altar team that day. And
that was pretty amazing.
so, I mean, God orchestrates things, and that's the beauty of it. We as Christians aren't called to make people members of a church,
Right.
Like, that's not what we're called to introduce people to Jesus, and then wherever they get fed is wherever they get fed. I mean, that's the beauty of being a Christian is, we're people, we're all flawed, we all have different styles of worship that we like,
Sure.
but we're all still one body wherever we are. So that's the beauty of being a Christian.
I said all that to say you guys are doing an amazing job here.
You just gotta let the Spirit lead, and
Yes,
he'll take you where you want to go. Where he wants to go. Let me say that.
Having said all of that, how does it feel to be able to relocate in size capacity?
This was a miracle, how God got us over to this building. This, I don't know if you're aware, we just paid off our mortgage.
Really?
Just paid it off. So that was fast, because we moved in here during COVID. During the pandemic, we left, put ourselves in, I don't know, gosh, at one point, $11 million in debt.
Wow.
We still had both buildings at the point. We sold the other one, and then we paid this off in about 3.5 years.
That is amazing.
So now the money that we were using for mortgage now goes into ministry. So, I mean, we're giving somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million a year to outreach and ministry, and that God's really using this. We're growing. To be honest, we're actually pushing capacity here in this building as far as our kids ministry goes. We're looking at upgrading our facilities a little more here to make room for the kids, which to me that's the blessing. If
that's beautiful.
You reach the kids, you reach the family. We have a lot of kids that come here whose parents only come here because their kids love it so much.
Wow.
So it's been a beautiful thing.
That is nice. Mm-hmm. Don't make me shed tears today. So seeing that you guys have upgraded in structure, how does your spiritual person grow with that as well? Oh,
we haven't lost a beat as far as that goes. It's just a newer building, but what we do inside this building it's been Pastor John's mission all along. Is connecting people to God, friends, family, and the world. Right. So that's what we do. We just try to be the light. We speak truth. We don't shy away from any of the controversies that the world tries to pull in. We find the biblical truth in that. The one thing I like about being a member of this congregation is you sit in a service and look around and you see the world around you. I mean, there's every economic status in the same room. There's every race in the same room, all different ages in there. And to me, it's a good picture of what heaven's going to be like. There's going to be a lot of people that get to heaven. They're going to be shocked that it looks like that, because they have their idea of what it should be. But I mean, it's just beautiful. That's what I see when I'm in there every day.
That's nice. Is that one of the things I know? Well, you say that you've been here, a member of Church on the Rock for 14 years.
Yeah, about that.
So you probably haven't looked for other church, being that this one's so
Right.
steadfast. But what are some values that you look for inside of selecting a membership?
If I was looking for church, first of all, is is it a vibrant, spirit-led church? Are what they do is there fruit from it? That's the main thing I'm looking for. Are people loving each other? Is it a genuineness? Are they seeking after God first? Are they looking for ways to share His message? That's basically what I would be looking for.
Nice.
Because there's in the American church now, I think one of the drawbacks is that it's become more of the social club,
Yeah.
than the kingdom of God, and so I'm looking for the kingdom of God. That's what I'm looking for.
Understandable.
Been on a few mission trips out of the country. I've been to Mexico. I've been to India a couple times, and when I was in India, just the hunger that they have for God was just, I mean, you could feel it. You could almost touch it. And then when I came back, it's almost a letdown to be back in America after you've experienced that, because you look around at this materialistic society that we're in, this selfish, me driven society, and you're like, man, we're wasting it. Like, they need to come minister, like they should send missionaries to us, because they actually know what it's like. We're just now experiencing any kind of persecution as Christians, but it's more political persecution. And the rest of the world, they could lose their house, they could lose their life. I mean, they could lose everything they have just because they follow Jesus. Whereas here, we might just have people look at us like we're crazy or something. So it's something. Persecution drives Christianity. You want to see growth in the church, wherever there's persecution, that's where you'll see growth in the church.
That's nice. So why do you think that American Christianity is, outside of lack of persecution, not as engaged fully in Christianity?
Comfort. I mean, like I said, we talked earlier about that busyness.
Yeah.
The devil, he's smart, but his tactics don't change. They've been the same forever.
Mm-hmm.
Keep people busy. It's okay if you want to go to church. Just keep it in the church. I know it's kind of like that same idea. We look at politics now. A lot of people don't really change who they're going to vote for based on debates and things, ads and things like that. Like it's the same thing. He knows, I'm not going to change these Christians. If they're Christians, they've been saved. I'm not going to be able to change that. I just got to keep them from being able to get other people to be Christians. And I think that's the tactic that the church is in now, that we've been trapped by our easy life. I mean, you look back at times when the church or when Christianity was going through revivals, during the Civil War. There were big revivals going on. During the Great Depression, there were great revivals going on. It was times when it was hard in our country, times when it's been good and we've had prosperity. People think they've done that on their own, so they kind of put God on a shelf. Yeah.
So you said that 14 years, one church, that's led you to an elder currently. How is that at such a young age?
Yeah, I joke with people. I'm like, we got to find a different name for that, because elder just makes me feel old. It was an honor. I just serve. That's just what I do. My wife and I have been serving in whatever ministry we could serve in at the time. And it's one of those deals where when you just seek after the Lord puts you in position. So I don't do anything different as an elder. I just, I have a little more responsibility. So I just try to use what God tells me. He's given me the gift of discernment, and He's given me a very logical thinking mind, which Pastor John, I think that's one of the reasons that he and I have a good relationship, is that we can bounce ideas off each other, seek counsel from each other when it comes to those things. Our team of elders here, great godly men, they seek after the Lord first and foremost. And do we always agree on things? Probably not. But for the most part, we're for whatever is going to grow the kingdom of God.
That's pretty cool. And could you tell us, like, maybe, no, you said you wherever you need it, serve wherever you need it. Where are some of the areas and ministries that you serve most?
Well, just kind of give you a history of how we've done it. Obviously, Lacey and I both being educators, we started off working with the youth at Powerhouse. That's where we helped. And then we started having kids, so we would go on mission trips here or there. We've done that. We've been part of the prayer team. We work with the kids zone, whatever outreaches have been there. Lacey works with the boombox truck now, where they go out
Cool.
to the different housing developments and minister to kids. So basically, just whatever is needed, that's what we do. We men's prayer breakfast, we do that. I do that from time to time, and you just got to keep your eyes open, and when you see a need, you step in and fill it.
That's beautiful. What's the greatest reward that you've seen from serving the church?
Man, just seeing people accepting Jesus. That's here lately. It feels like every service we have, anywhere from 5 to 20 people accepting Jesus. There's just a hunger right now that people are at that spot I was in my early 30s. That, hey, life is messed up. I can't do this. It's too tough to try to do it on my own, and I mess it up when I do.
Yes, sir.
So they're hungering after something, and when they come here and they just experience God, and He does the rest.
And how do you continuously keep? It's like they're still, and I'm speaking like a person that's still, like I said, I'm
right
on the track of righteousness, but how is there still people who are needing to be saved? Like, Christianity has been around for 2,000 years, and you still see 20 people in one service getting saved. That's a beautiful sight to see.
And that's the crazy thing. Like some people say we're not anymore, but we are a Christian nation. That's our founding. Definitely. That's our heritage. But still, people grow up in a situation where God's not first in their family, then they don't get to know Him. So they try to live life, and at some point, hopefully, they encounter somebody who knows Jesus and they introduce them. But if, like you said, if it's not a priority, most people in our country have heard of, they've been to a church, they've heard of God, they've experienced something, but the timing in their life just wasn't, they weren't ready.
Right.
And, there's a lot of people who grew up in the church that may have even been baptized as a kid. They go and live their own life, but they were just accepting their parents' Jesus. That Jesus wasn't real to them yet.
Right.
So there's in the Bible it says, train up a child in the way they should go, and they'll never depart from it. So that was me. My parents raised me in the church, and I had all the knowledge. I knew all the scriptures. I knew all things, but it hadn't been my decision yet.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So once you get to that point where it's your decision, that's when true salvation comes. And it's not. For some people it can be a light switch moment, but for others it's a gradual growth into that. You're just because you're saved, it doesn't mean you don't make bad decisions. It doesn't mean you don't slip from time to time. I still have faults. Let me just tell you, I'm an elder in the church, and I still struggle with things. And some of the things I struggle with, it's the same things over and over and over again. So we're humans, and Adam and Eve, they kind of started this ball rolling for us in the wrong direction and gave the kingdom over, the dominion of the earth over to the devil, and we're still fighting that. So, but we know the outcome. The final thing, God's coming back for those keys, and then we're all good.
I'm here for it. Are you ready for some trivia questions?
I guess. I'm not real good at trivia, but here we go.
Really? I beg to differ. I went in and purposely found questions that I didn't know the answers to.
Okay, so you're going to give me some hard ones.
So this should be fun. So it may seem like I know the answers, but it's only because I have them. But we have about 6 from the Old Testament and 6 from the
Bible
New Testament.
trivia. Okay.
And I didn't come up with these by myself. Some of them I got. I have this Sunday Bible School study booklet, and it comes with trivia questions, and I grabbed a few of them from here.
I need to get I should have brought some of the kids from the Bible quiz team in here. They just won nationals, so
that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's nice. So you guys go to national for?
We have a Bible quiz team for the kids. They have different age groups, and they went and won. They win nationals like every year.
That's pretty exciting. Yeah. I'll bring them some questions too.
Yeah, there you go.
Interview some children. So the first question for the trivia would be, what house did Moses grow up in?
Oh, he grew up in Pharaoh's house.
Okay.
I just talked about that story the other day in men's prayer breakfast.
Well, I was going to ask you about it because what correlation is there? Because did Moses ask Pharaoh to free his people?
Well, see, this is the fascinating thing, right? This is the way I approach this story. It's kind of how I think about it. So, at the time, the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, right? But their numbers, they were just growing and growing. There were so many of them that the Egyptians were kind of fearful. But see, the devil also knew that the Messiah was going to come from the Israelites. Mm-hmm. So he was doing his best to try to wipe them out, right? So Pharaoh, at the time, decreed that all Israelite boys under 2 kill them all. Mm-hmm. So Moses escapes that. He's in, his mom or sister puts him in a basket in the river, and so God allows him to live. He's found by Pharaoh's daughter. Mm-hmm. She takes him back as her own, but she was looking for an Israelite woman to still nurse him. Well, guess who they went and got? Moses' mom. So Moses grows up in Pharaoh's household with all the benefits of Pharaoh's household, still being influenced by his Israelite mother. Because, see, God's purpose for Moses was to free the Israelites, to lead them out. So he put him in position for that to happen. Now, Moses screwed that up because Moses went out one day and saw some Egyptians beating up an Israelite slave, so he kills one of the Egyptians, and then he has to go flee. So he leaves and becomes a shepherd out in the desert and has his whole family. See, God still wasn't done. He still had a purpose for him. Mm-hmm. So then we get the burning bush, and he brings him back. So, yeah, it's a pretty cool story.
Man, when you started talking about it, I was like, okay, I do remember that. But that's a crazy story.
Yeah. So God will put us in position, and we can still mess it up, but he'll still fix it.
He still have the opportunity to bring us back.
That's right.
Where was God's glory found during the years that the Israelites roamed the desert?
In the tabernacle.
Yes, sir.
That's right. They had their roaming church tent. It was pretty cool.
So, do you remember Devontae Vaughn?
Yeah.
So I had an interview with him a few weeks ago.
I watched part of that.
That was really cool. That was my first one, so I was really nervous, but it was really fun too. We talked about Moses and the Israelites after Moses had went up on the mountain, and it was so funny how he emphasized on, he was gone for a few days and he came back and they built multiple temples. Like, how did y'all do that so fast?
They're already back to worshiping idols. I was like, come on, people.
That's crazy.
That's a cool thing. So, you think about during that time, God manifested physically,
yes,
a pillar of fire at night so that they could see, and then a cloud during the day. So they knew when God was there because this cloud would descend upon the tabernacle, upon the Ark of the Covenant, right? So, we don't have that physical thing now, but we have the Spirit, that same Spirit living within us. So it's pretty cool.
Yes, and I can it makes me think of it if they're so naive to turn away from God in such a fastly manner
We do the
to
same
see
thing.
Him do miracles in real time,
Right.
then we should not feel as terrible with in our day and age in
Right.
Christianity when we turn away from God, because like we know God exists. If we're believers, we know He's real, but we don't see Him bringing down a cloud. We don't see Him delivering manna from heaven or bringing water out of a rock. So I try to look at it in the aspect of not holding myself too, or not being too hard on myself when I do
Yeah.
sin or find flaws in myself, just because, not to say the Israelites are the best comparisons, but to even say that,
Yeah. And God still loved them and still delivered them.
Yes, sir.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So if that helps, not
It's
being
that
hard on
same.
yourself.
It's the same. Like we call God Father, and I know why. Being a dad now, I understand 100% why.
Yes, sir.
Because I tell my boys, I try to show them my model. We explain it, then I walk away and come back and they've messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And God's the same way with us. I can just picture God going, "Okay, Jacob, let's try this again."
That's why I have to be thankful to be a child of God, because
right.
Like you said, as a father, you have to continually be forgiven,
right,
or have a forgiving mindset. So that's a good thing. I'm not a father yet, but hope to be one day, and
you'll be a good one.
Glad to know that
You'll
God,
be a good one.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Who hid the Israelites? Who hid the Israelite spies in Jericho?
Oh goodness, Rahab.
Yes.
Ah, there we go.
And wasn't Rahab like the great grandmother of Jesus, or
she's mentioned? She's mentioned in one of the story. I can forget. She's in a lineage somewhere.
Yeah.
But which is really an interesting aspect, because you look at their culture at the time. Women, you didn't talk about women. So that's a big deal. Anytime there's a story about a woman in the Bible, like it's a big
Tune
deal.
in. I can't remember, so I'm not. This is a question I'll ask you later offset. But there's a story about Rahab, and I want to figure it out. How do you feel about that? Question number 4. So far, we're 3 for 3.
All right.
Daniel, how was Daniel protected in the lion's den?
So the angel shut the mouth of the lions. Yeah, Daniel's a fascinating character too. Yes. I would really love to know what prophecy he had that was sealed, because God gave him a prophecy of the end times and then told him to seal it. So
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The book of Daniel take some reading, the symbolism of it, but if you understand kind of the historical features of it, it's a good picture. Everything he said has come to pass so far. So
I do love the story.
Yeah.
Which Old Testament book teaches about a holy marriage and healthy romantic relationship?
Song of Songs or Song of Solomon.
Song of Songs.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
5 for 5.
Yeah. Look at there. Let me stay in order.
How much time passed between the Old Testament and the New Testament?
Oh gosh.
History teacher, come on.
200 something years, I think. I don't remember.
Close. Halfway there. Give you a hint.
Oh, so it's 400?
Yeah.
I knew it was a long time. There's a long time of no writing, and God seemed to be silent during that time. So, but he was still working.
Yes, sir. There was a question, and let me see that I didn't put it down, but it came to me last night. I'm gonna think if I can structure it in the correct way. Do you think that, and for instance, Daniel was told to seal his prophecy. Mm-hmm. Do you think that at the time of, I'll use David wrote most of the Old Testament?
Well, Moses wrote the first 5, and then David wrote, a lot of the Psalms and things like that. So,
do you think that upon their death they had written all of what they experienced?
Oh, probably not. I mean, you even look at the disciples who were with Jesus. I mean, they didn't even write down everything that Jesus said or did. Right. So, I mean, as a historical minded person, like, gosh, it would just be fascinating to go back and experience some of that, because, you know, you think about just this last week. Would you be able to document everything that you did in the last week?
No,
right?
sir.
So, I mean, it would be impossible to do. But nothing happens by accident. I really believe that. There's no coincidence.
Right.
In fact, I don't think the Hebrews even had a word for coincidence, because they realized that everything is divinely appointed or happens for a reason. So anything that we have now, that's what the Spirit wanted us to have.
Understandable. That's a beautiful answer. Outside of the typical Bible, is there anything that can be backdated to relate or correspond to the Bible that we can gain knowledge from?
Yeah, so you look at just even archaeology today. Like the Bible is the greatest source of history that we have, because it can all be factually proven. Like you can archaeologically find it. Other historians of the day, what's his name? Josephus, I think is his name. There was a historian during the time that documented a lot of those things. So even the book of Luke, the Gospel of Luke, he wasn't hanging out with Jesus. He was just a doctor. He hung out with Paul some, but he went around and interviewed all of the people that were still around that he could interview. That's how he wrote his gospel. It's just fascinating to think about. I mean, I find articles now that you look at the Noah's Ark. There's archaeological evidence of Noah's Ark still being on Mount Ararat in Turkey, modern day Turkey.
Yeah.
They won't let anybody go up there because they don't want people to know that that's true. So
that's pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
So for the Old Testament trivia, 6 or 6. Congratulations.
Close enough. On the
Got
200, 400.
Oh, yeah. We give it.
Yeah.
What's that we used to get in school? We'll curve it. So we got 6 more New Testament questions, which is a little bit more, a little less.
I may be worse at that. We'll see.
How are we able to get to the Father?
Only through the Son.
Only through the Son.
Yeah.
And that's
He's the way, the truth, and the life.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
Cool.
John 14:6.
I was like, I had to gotta ask this one. After Jesus is resurrected, how many times does he ask Peter if he loves him?
Oh, he asked him 3 times, the same as he denied him before. I love, like, that whole story is just fascinating. Do you ever watch The Chosen? Series The Chosen?
I think the last season I watched was season 2.
Okay, so we're watching season 4 right now. But, man, just watching the character of Peter on there, like I'm looking forward to that, because we just watched an episode where Jesus changed his name to Peter.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like Peter. Like you said, Peter's my
he's
spirit animal at times.
Yeah, he's so cool because, he's so relatable to most people, because we're creatures of we just react. And I think that's how Peter did. And he was like, Jesus is physically right there looking at him doing things. And I know how I feel now when I do something that I shouldn't be doing. And I have that, oh man, to know that like Jesus was staring him down while he was doing it. Gosh, that cuts you a whole different way.
Yeah. I would have got in trouble with Peter a lot.
Because honestly, he acted out of what he thought was the best. Like he thought he was doing the right thing most of the time, and Jesus still corrected him. Like that's not why I'm here. That's not what we're about. And I think we do that same thing today.
Yeah, it's like I came to be. What was the word you used earlier? I came to be done wrong, so you can't.
Right.
Don't get mad when my life has been done what it's supposed to be done.
Right.
I came to be persecuted, so calm down, Peter.
Yeah, I came here for a purpose, and it's not what you think it is. I'm not here to set up an earthly kingdom.
Which chapter in the New Testament is considered the love chapter?
1 Corinthians, 13?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It was crazy. Got this one from the Bible trivia, but my mom gave me this poster like so many years ago, and it's love is patient, love is kind. And I've seen this, and it's in my bathroom, and bathroom is outside the bedroom. So I went in and I peeped around. I was like, okay, that's right.
So yeah, you hear that one at most weddings. My niece just got married last weekend, and the minister there, which is a cool story, he officiated my parents' wedding 50-something years ago. My brother and his wife's wedding 26 years ago, and then my brother's daughter's wedding last weekend. So the same pastor. It's pretty cool. But he did something with that verse, with that chapter, that I'd never heard done before. He used it as kind of like their vows. So he had them say it to each other, like, I will not envy, I will not boast. It was pretty cool. Yeah,
I do like that. Yeah. I have to go back and read it in that perspective too.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite verses from the Bible. Which spiritual gift does Paul say we should eagerly desire?
Hang on, let me go through that. Gosh, I just went totally blank. I want to say prophesy, but that's not right. Prophesy. I'm going to go with prophesy.
That's it?
Yeah,
prophesy.
Okay. For some reason, I was doubting myself.
4 for 4 again.
Which is, you think about the whole idea, like, you can see prophesy in two different ways. A lot of times we think prophecy telling the future, but really prophecy is just encouragement. So if we can go and speak encouragement into somebody's life, which that is prophesying over them. It doesn't necessarily, we tell people take prophecy with a grain of salt, because if I come in and, I can say, hey, God's got a purpose and a plan for your life. I see you doing, great things, speaking to multitudes of people, all those kinds of things. Well, that may not mean anything to me as I'm telling you that, right. But it could speak something to you, or it could start you down that right path of asking God and those things. So that idea of speaking life into somebody is what I see as prophesying.
I think we got a question coming up kind of structured around that response, and we can dabble in that a little bit. It's crazy how the interviews are working out. Like, I called it arranged conversations because I truly feel like it's from God. Yeah, and throughout the process, it has definitely been an arrangement, and I just get so happy and overwhelmed with that. 4 for 4. Let's ask number 5 is in the armor of God from Ephesians 6. What does the sword represent?
The sword is the word of God.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's your only offensive weapon that you're given. you look at it. Everything else, all the other things he talks about are defense, and that's the only offensive weapon is the word of God. And you think about all the different times in the Bible, like he told his disciples, take a sword different times and not to in different times. But what I always find fascinating is when in Revelation, when it talks about when Jesus comes back with all the saints, right? So we're taken up, and then we get to come back with him, and we supposedly are the army of God coming back, but we don't do anything other than just ride alongside him, right? Like it says, his tongue is like a double-edged sword, wiping things out. So his word cuts people to the heart, and that's the cool. So and then in John, in the beginning was the word. So the sword was at the beginning, and so it's just it's really like the way the Bible connects is just fascinating to
Yes.
me.
Yes, it is, man. Got your bumps. uh, so those were 5 for 5. This next one is
You're going to give me the hardest
5,
one and the
6,
last
7.
one.
Yes.
I've been struggling already. Go ahead.
Technically, there is 7 responses. I'll say you got it if you can get 4.
Okay.
In the Gospel of John, what are all of Jesus's I am statements?
Okay. Way, truth, life, the bread of life, the light of the world. Gosh.
Ooh. The bread of life.
I mean, he calls himself the Son of Man. I don't know if that counts as one of them. I'm going blank on the last 2.
Hey, did great. The door, gatekeeper,
Right.
and you said the. Well, I'll read them in order.
Okay.
I am the bread of life. You said
Right.
that one. The light of the world.
Light
You
of the
said
world.
that one.
Yep.
Well, you said that one.
I said light.
Yeah.
Right.
Doorkeeper, door
Didn't get that.
gatekeeper, the resurrection and
Resurrection.
the life.
Right.
The good shepherd, the way, the truth, and the life, and the true vine.
Yeah.
So, oh man, it was a lot.
He's everything. He's everything that you need when
Yes,
you need
sir.
it.
Yes, sir. That's pretty wonderful. I picked that question because I know you said your favorite verse of the gospel was the John 14:6.
Right.
That's the truth and the light. So I was like, I wonder if he.
Yeah, the book of John is one, like, if anybody ever wants to know about Jesus, that's the book I point them to. I think that's the best one to start with of the Gospels, because it's really the relational gospel as far as, who Jesus is for you at that point. I think each person that reads the book of John encounters Jesus in a different way, and every time you read the book of John, you encounter him in a different way.
When you say is a relationship, that you mean personal with God, or just in general relationships?
Yeah, it shows how Jesus interacts with each person.
Okay.
But I think it is relational for the person reading it. Like, he speaks to people differently as they're reading that.
Nice. Alive is the word.
100%.
Lost track of my questions. Well, 12 for 12.
Yeah, pretty
11
pretty
and a half for 12.
We'll round up.
So this will be our last segment of questions.
All right.
If I can find them.
It's been fun so far.
Man, it's pretty good. I like the trivia part.
Yeah.
So you get the laugh.
Lightens the mood and gets more information in there, so people can expand on it.
So I know we touched on it a while back, just briefly, but how is it as a Christian educator?
I think it's, as a Christian in any profession, you just feel blessed. I don't worry about things. There's things happen in a day-to-day job, any job, where you could panic if you wanted to, but I just have a sense of peace. For example, we're at the time of the year where, for principals, when you have jobs that still aren't filled, like teaching positions that you've got to fill, it's getting close to the point now where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have a teacher for this position, or if I get a teacher, they're probably not going to be one that I'm going to keep very long because nobody else wants them either, kind of approach. But I don't panic like that anymore. I really just, other people are like, well, have you hired? I'm like, God's going to send the right person at the right time. So, when you have that perspective, it really changes a lot. I used to be really stressed and worry about things, but I don't anymore. God has proven his faithfulness over and over and over and over. And if I find myself in a moment where I'm a little anxious about something, I just think back to one of those times, and I'm like, he's got it. I've just got to
Yeah.
keep working, and then he'll do what he needs to do.
That's pretty cool. It's a nice mindset to have as well.
Yep.
Have you seen the school environment shift in culture? Well, not necessarily shift in culture.
It's changing. It's tougher to be an educator today.
Talk to us about it.
There are so many different things now that kids deal with, even from back when you were in school. Like, not all of y'all had cell phones.
Yeah.
I mean, a good number did, but I mean, the internet was still relatively new. Social media was probably brand new. I think I probably still had a MySpace account when you were in school.
I was just telling my fiance the other day, I was like, I remember we literally had to like scroll Facebook on like Google, like the website. There wasn't an app, so it was crazy.
So things were still, we were unaware of what that would cause. Now I've got fourth graders that have cell phones on my campus, and they all have social media accounts, TikToks and Instagrams and Snapchats, and so the things that educators had to deal with before, those really aren't issues now.
Right.
I think back to my time at Liberty Iowa, we had a lot of issues with conflict between students. Back in my day when I was in school, if somebody had a fight at school, well, you went home and you really didn't have contact. You'd have to pick up a phone off the wall and know that person's phone number to really keep that fight going. Most of the time, you go home, everybody cools off, you come back to school, and it's all forgotten.
Yep.
Okay? Well, not anymore. Now, people are recording it, and, people fight. Now I'm recording it, I go home, and it's posted, it's on my wall, and it's just in my face, and I sit and I dwell on it, and I dwell on it, and I dwell on it. Now I'm commenting, the other person's commenting, their parents are commenting, and then I come back to school,
it's all over again.
and its cycle just keeps going because there was never an end. There's never an end to the conflict. So those are the things that educators have to deal with now. Is that social media has a lot of benefits. This is one. Like we can put this out there and use this as an opportunity. But the devil uses it for so many other things, and that aspect of, even kids think that everything they do behind a keyboard or a keypad is anonymous because I don't have to look you in the eyes.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to say the same things looking you in the eyes as I would say
courageous thumbs.
Right. So, so being an educator, those kinds of things. But now we're still having to teach you. We're trying to teach you how to think. We're trying to teach you how to be productive. We're trying to teach you how to deal with all those. Now we've got mental health issues that we're dealing with, since COVID, and even social media has been an aspect of hurting people's emotional health. Right. So, we're dealing with all those kinds of things. Well, as a principal, not only are we worried about the kids, I have to worry about my staff and those same situations. I jokingly tell people when you're a principal, it means that your problems have just expanded. If you have 300 people on your campus, well, you have 300 extra problems, and all of their problems become your problems, whether it be their family, because if I have a teacher who's got family problems where they got to be home, that becomes my problem because now I've got to replace you in the classroom for the day. And so it's education's tough, and then the state and the legislators keep adding and adding and adding all these things that we're supposed to do and not giving us the funding to do it.
It's crazy.
And I'm in a weird situation because I still believe in public education, but at the same time, my kids are homeschooled.
Right.
And they're not homeschooled for the reasons that we don't like public education. My youngest just had some learning disabilities that he was not getting his needs met in public school because there's just too many other things that teachers have to worry about. No knock on any of them. We just felt like that was our responsibility to get him that help, and that's worked. And my oldest, he was like, well, if y'all are homeschooling, I want to homeschool too. He's at the opposite end of that. I have to find ways to keep him humble and find things that he's not good at just to try to keep him there. But he's highly intelligent as well, and school always came easy for him. And his goal is to finish school early because he wants to be a professional soccer player.
Nice.
So he's like, "Do I have to go to college?" And I said, "Buddy, if you can get a contract, you can do college later.
No, for real.
Go soccer. Your soccer career, you can only do that for so many years. So take care of that." And so it's one of those deals where with the whole voucher system that the state's pushing right now, it's this is my opinion. So anybody that's listening in the public education world, this is just Jakeb Goff's opinion.
Disclaimer.
Yeah. I think vouchers, the way that they're being pushed right now, are going to hurt public education. People who can afford private schools and homeschool are already doing that.
Right.
Okay. I think what you're seeing right now is with vouchers, your middle class families who can't afford a full private school tuition. Well, now if you're going to give them extra money, now they can afford that. So you will see some of them middle class families start pulling their kids out. So what your public schools are going to be left are you're going to be your low socioeconomic, your poor kids.
Right.
And your poor kids are the ones who struggle the most in school because they have parents, a lot of them single families, single parent households, mom, dad, whichever, are having to work extra jobs to keep everything going in the household. So they don't always have somebody at home in those early years, teaching them ABCs and reading to them every night or helping them with homework or, because those parents have to decide, do I meet the physical needs first? And that's the biggie. I got to put food on the table and a roof over the head. That's what I'm worried about. And then the school will take care of the education. Well, they come to school behind. They struggle with reading, they struggle with math, they struggle with understanding the concepts of school. So that's what you're going to have it's going to be that. And it's going to be hard because those are the hardest kids to work with in a classroom. And then so your teachers, if that's all I have, unless their heart is really in it, and there's a lot of them who are.
No, seriously.
I mean, it's a calling, but unless your heart's really in it, you're not going to stay. So it's harder and harder to find educators who are willing to work with those kids.
Man, that is a little scary. I was about to ask right before you made that statement, is it because do you think that the school districts here locally are overpopulated and that hinders us being able to directly teach certain children?
We do have, research shows that the smaller the ratio of students to teacher, the better education that they get. A lot of the classrooms in our town, you're pushing 25, 26, 27 kids to one teacher. That's a lot. Out at Redwater where I am on my campus, we're somewhere, some grade levels are 12 to 1, some are 15, 16 to 1. So it's a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that makes a huge difference. And now it's hard to find people who want to be teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So we're having to hire, throughout our area, you're hiring a lot of people who are not fully certified. They might be working towards a certification, but they have a degree, they went to college, they worked in the professional setting and then decided to be teachers. So they're learning on the job. They don't have the teacher training, they didn't do student teaching, they're just trying to figure it out as they go. So that, even like I did student teaching, I have my education degree, I went to college for all of that, and you had me in my early years and I was still trying to figure it out. Yeah. So like it takes some time, and if you didn't have that training and background, it's a little harder.
Yeah, I know our class was rough. We were one of the rough ones, but from where you started, I think it was you're a great example of not only a teacher, but just a gentleman in life and what to look up to. So I appreciate that.
That's why I'm glad you said that's my goal, is just to be an influence, like just to teach people how life can be. Lead by example. That's the way I see it.
Yes, sir.
And I love what you're doing. It's so good to see former students out and about and doing great things. And some of your names I still forget, but like you're one that I will never forget.
It's okay. It's probably the worst. Well, now it's a good name, but like I said, I was a rough one growing up. So
No. I'll tell you, as an educator, some of my favorite kids were the ones that are in trouble all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I just gravitate towards them. I still see a lot of them, and Facebook has been great for that. I can keep up with some of them, but the best thing, the most rewarding aspect of it is when I get messages from them when they say, "Hey, listen, you told me this," and I don't even remember the situation,
right.
but they say, "I'll never forget you said this," and I didn't really listen to it at the time, but now that I'm older, I thought back on that, and thank you for that. So it's pretty cool.
Man, like you said, teachers go through so many students, and vice versa. Right. We're only getting X amount of teachers per year, so we can kind of reminisce on the situations a little better and see how they stick to us in life versus you probably had that conversation with 30 different students. So
here's a tip for everybody listening. So if you ever see one of your teachers out in public, never say, "Do you remember my name?" Because odds are they do not remember your name. But just walk up and introduce yourself and say, "Hey, I was in your class," because that will trigger their memory. Like a lot of times I can remember where a kid sat, but I cannot remember their name.
Well, we kind of touched this subject earlier too, but the question was, how can we implement the love of God inside of school district without breaking any laws or rules? And you kind of stated on
right,
this is Jakeb's belief, this is how I believe, and everything like that.
As an educator, you have the greatest influence probably of any other profession out there, because you are given, like some schools you get 100 and something kids a year, some you've got just your 30, 40, 50, whatever it is, but you have 180 days of influence over those kids 6 hours a day. So what you do has impact. Like I try to tell people, like, what you do matters way more than you realize. If you're the type of person who is just very negative, then that's what you're teaching your kids, is how to complain and be negative. Kids are very perceptive. Like, I guarantee you can remember which teachers were genuine and loved y'all and which ones were there for a paycheck. You know that. Nobody, you don't have to, it's very evident in how they present themselves. So you don't have to be explicitly saying scriptures and out loud praying over people as an educator. You just, in your interactions and how you love kids when they've messed up, the grace that you show, how you help people, and then you don't have to pray out loud. Like, I can walk my campus every day praying up and down those hallways, inviting God to be there and lead the day, and nobody has to know.
Right.
So I know a lot of Christian educators who pray over every desk in their classroom every day. And they say, they pray for, hey, the kids are going to sit in this desk today, help them have a good day, bless them, all those kinds of things. So it's very easy to do without just, shouting from the top of the lectern, "Hey, I'm a Christian, everybody should believe in Jesus."
Yeah. That's crazy. I never just looked at it in the perspective of that. And
right.
That's security in my heart to know that there is good people out there.
There's a lot of them.
Yes, sir.
A lot of them.
Okay, I'm gonna stop. I was trying to think during the questions. How do we teach the next generation that about putting God first? This was one of the questions that I said we'll touch back on. How do we teach the next generations that by putting God first, you may not find yourself reaching your personal goals in life, but that doesn't mean that you're not reaching your personal goals in life. Doesn't mean that it's going to be something that God set for you. Vice versa, what God sets for you might not be what you expected in life.
I think there has to, and it's hard because as kids they don't have that intellectual capability yet to maybe understand it. But the beauty is that they probably have more faith to understand it than we do. Is it like the more experience we have and the more intelligence we have, sometimes that's a hindrance to our faith. So I think it's just reiterating to as many kids as you can, and I tell adults the same thing, the ones that seem to just be lost and wondering, that God has a purpose and a plan for everybody. He didn't put you here by accident. You may not know what that purpose and plan is, and he may not tell you right now.
Right.
But everything you're going through is to shape you for that final outcome. The story of Joseph, he rescued everybody from the famine, but he had to be put in a hole, sold into slavery by his brothers, accused of adultery by his master when he got there, and thrown in jail, and then had to interpret a dream for Pharaoh before he had the position to do what God wanted him to do.
Right.
But during all those other times, he had to just believe and accept that what he was going through was going to work out. And I think that's what a lot of us aren't willing to do is hey, I'm in a bad spot right now. I'm not where I want to be. Okay, well, what should you be learning and preparing yourself for while you're in this situation? Because this may not be, it's probably not the outcome. This is not the destination, but what you're going through is to shape you for what you're going to do. And if you're not asking him,
you go into it blind.
Right. So, you just keep asking until he gives you an answer. Like my kids are great at that. If I'm trying to ignore them, they're going to keep asking, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're supposed to do. If we go silent, we're never going to know.
That's correct. Childlike faith. I love that phrase. And I'll kind of say, I believe I heard a pastor that said that God either show you the mountaintop and not the valley, or he'll show you the valley and not the mountaintop on things that he wants for your life.
So that, it says that he's a light to our path and a lamp unto our feet, right? So that's two different types of lights.
Yes, sir.
So if I've got a lamp or a light that's going to light up my path, then I can see where I'm going. Okay, so that's a destination. Well, sometimes though, I'm just a lamp unto my feet.
Right.
Which means I'm just like with my phone light, sometimes it doesn't go very far. I can just see my next step.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's what God is telling us, is that I'm just worry about the next step. You don't need to know what's coming down here, because that's going to alter those steps.
Yes, sir.
So you got to think about that.
And that's kind of what this is. I feel like I had a glimpse of the mountaintop and didn't see the valley. And the only way to get to the valley was to put forth in a step. So right now we're just lighting up our feet, and this is our walk. So I appreciate you for being a part of that. That's not the end, and it sounded like it. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you did.
I did kind of speed past one of my questions that I wanted to ask when we was talking about our person. How do you relate to your favorite Bible character?
We kind of a little bit talked about that, but like I'm very much like Peter too, where I want to know like when talking about plans and things. Mm-hmm. I'm a plan maker. Like that's what I do. I plan everything out.
Yeah.
And I think Peter was the same way. Like once he encountered Jesus, and he was like, "Oh, this is where. All right, so I'm going to start making things happen." And then Jesus had to halt him and be like, "Hey, I appreciate it, but that's really not the plan I had in mind. So you're going to need to get on board with my plan." And God does that to me. I told you before we started, I'm 48 years old. I didn't think I was going to be having another baby, and we were expecting a baby in November, right?
Yes, sir.
That wasn't in my plans, but God changed the plan, and He's got a purpose for that. So hey, I'm raising another kid to impact the kingdom, so that's what we're going to do at this point.
Pretty cool. I love that. What can we take away from their character? What can you take away from Peter's characteristics to help strengthen your walk with Christ?
redemption, the second chances, and when we mess up, God's still there for us. And you think about the fact, like when he saw Jesus walking on the water, he wanted that, and I think that's the way I want to do what Jesus is doing. And
Right.
when he says, "All right, well, come on, let's go," then I get out there, and then you start having those doubts, right?
Sure.
And then you have to. So that same idea, and then there are times where we're called to do big things, and we implode them. Peter denying Jesus. Hey, he'd already told Peter, "I'm going to build my church. Like, you're going to be the foundation. You're going to spark this church that's going to go." And Peter's like, "Awesome, we'll do it. I'll die with you, whatever." And then when the when it hit,
Yeah.
he was like, "I don't know about that." And I think we face that a lot of times, but God doesn't give up on that.
Right.
He's still standing right there waiting for us. When we're ready to come back and do it, he'll ask, "Are you sure you're ready for this?" And when we verbalize that and we repent and come back, we're right back on track. It doesn't change. Like he didn't tell Peter, "Hey, I'm glad you're back. I was going to build a church on you. You denied me. I'm going to move over to John.
Right,
I'm going to let John do it
sir.
now." No, that's not how he works. He's still ready to still give us what he had planned for us. We still have consequences for our sin, but that's on us.
Yeah.
Like, we're the reason for those consequences.
Right. He's not going to intentionally set up something in your life that makes you feel
right
like a bad person for not following him. Even
right.
like that. He's not can't remember how I said it, but
yeah, I mean, you think about, like, as a dad, right? I have to still discipline my children, but there's a different discipline. It's the way God disciplines us. It's a corrective discipline. It's not a punitive discipline. It's correction. Hey, you messed that up. We got to come over here. Now, for my kids, the punitive discipline side is usually the consequence they brought on themselves. So, like, if they disobeyed and were jumping on the trampoline and wrestling with each other the way they weren't supposed to, they got hurt.
Right.
Like that's the punitive.
Yeah.
Like, they got their own discipline because of that. My discipline is, hey, that's not how we do it. Let's just stay off the trampoline for a little while and let's go in here and figure out how we can get along a little better. So
my mom used to make us wear shirts together, me and my younger sister.
The get along shirts.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I love it.
What does the phrase mean, pick up your cross, to you?
Sacrifice. And I think there's a big piece of that that we as American Christians are unwilling to do. But there is an aspect of sacrifice that we have to do for Jesus, is giving up control, giving up what we desire. But the beauty of it is that it doesn't feel like sacrifice when you surrender and make your desires the same as God's desires. When they're aligned, then you don't feel like that you're doing those things. I mean, there is a sacrifice. Like, I'll be honest, there was a point in time where we were struggling with debt, and it hurt every month to give the church my tithe when I'm like, that money could pay off these things. So that was, that sacrifice of obedience. But the aspect that came from that is we've never lacked for anything. Like, God has always provided anything. In the moments where it felt like I wasn't going to make a payment, something came in and some payments were there. Like, our testimony after testimony, Coleman Carney, who never gives back money for anything, I would get checks in the mail for Coleman Carney to cover things that I didn't think I was going to be covering.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, I mean, God, there's an aspect of that, of giving up the things that we thought we wanted in our life and buying into what He had planned for us. Because sometimes what you can sacrifice best for good. Like, you can still have a good life, but what God wanted for you was the best. So I think that's the struggle.
What's that on your door? Good, better, best. Never rest until your good is better and your better is your
It
best.
wasn't on mine,
No.
but I like that.
It was someone's door. Now that you said that in middle school, I can't remember, but yeah, I love that.
Yeah, the phrase I use now with my kids and staff is "Be better today than you were yesterday, and be better tomorrow than you were today."
Cool. I remember at a time something like that. My phrase was because I was being uh, lazy. It was yesterday you said today, and that stuck with me for a while. So I like that one too.
Yeah.
Cool. We're on our last few questions.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're paying tithes, how do you withdraw your 10% for the church first before paying your bills, or do you?
Yeah.
How is it structured?
So I guess we've almost made it too easy here at church. So my tithe is direct drafted out of my account. So
Okay.
I have it set up to come out on my payday every time. And so we just figured, based on our gross income, what 10% was, and we do that. And then we do a little, some over that because we support different missionaries and things like that. But it it took some getting used to. But if you can get used to living on 90%, God can do way more with 90% than what you can do with 100%.
Yes, sir.
Like, just be honest, like loaves and fishes, like he fed all those 5,000 people with just a few loaves and a couple of fish.
Yes, sir.
So he doesn't need much. He just needs your willingness and your faith, and then man, he can take it from there.
Funny question. Do you think Jesus cooked the fish?
I don't know. I guess I don't know how they. I guess they dried their fish like it was like sardine.
I seen a TikTok. I was like, not Jesus eating sushi. That was pretty funny. So I know you spoke on being an educator as well as your wife over the children's ministry. How has it been teaching the next generation faith-based religion?
It's been fun. Like I'm watching her now with the kids. She's done actually a whole research on this next generation, kind of their characteristics, and she's preached on it a couple of times when the church has allowed her to. But she's done a study on them. How each generation has a different thing.
Generation Alpha or
Generation
Beta? Okay.
Generation Alpha. So Alpha is supposedly they have the most influence as far as when it comes to marketing and all those kinds of things. Like if you look at the way people market towards them, it's different because they're very in touch with technology. They're very in touch with the culture and everything that's there. So, but they also don't just believe because, like they're very purposeful and like I need to know the why.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
You're not just gonna sell me a bunch of snake oil. Like I've got to figure things out and do that. So, and I think there's good qualities there. There's qualities there that the devil can use to turn people away. But I think that's why we just have to be open and honest with this generation and just tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly. And,
yes,
and you can't make Christianity just look all happy all the time,
right?
Because we are flawed individuals and we struggle, and we have to be open and honest with them about, hey, yeah, I struggle with these things too. So, it's okay. It's okay to question God. He's not intimidated by any questions we have, and he's not intimidated when we're mad at him. He's he's experienced everything that we experience. So he's patient. He is all those things. He is love. He is patient. He's kind. He's all of that. So it's been cool. And one thing I just want to say this real quick. One thing that she and I talk about a lot is when you're dealing with this younger generation and any young people, you limit them when you tell them what they can and can't do, right? So if we had some kids that wrote some songs, and they just released a kids album a year ago.
That's pretty cool.
And people are like, wow, like how did they? I said, because nobody told them they couldn't.
Yeah.
Like they just came in and said, hey, can I write a song? Because one kid wrote a song with his mom, and they played it, and everybody else was like, well, can I write a song?
That's amazing.
And that's the moment where, as a leader, you could have either said, well, that's probably not your gifting, or no, we just want. But when you just say yes, you don't. They never know that they shouldn't have or couldn't have, or so I think that's how you approach that younger generation. Is like, if that's what God's leading you to do, then yeah, go do it. We'll help you. We'll support you.
That's wonderful. It's great to have someone in your life like that. What has Arranged Conversations done for you today, and what do you hope that it can do for others?
I've enjoyed this process because it's just helped me verbalize things that I've been thinking. You've asked some really good questions to just get people started and talking, and I think this is a great platform for just getting people to think about God in a different way. They may not agree, and I may have said some things that aren't 100%, right? Yes. But it just gets people thinking about God, and at the end, just seeking Him and asking Him and getting to know Him, and that's the best thing that you could ever do.
Yes, sir.
You can't force somebody to get saved, but you can lead them in the right direction.
Yes, sir. That's 100%. Man, that's all I got. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Word for him. What will be the word of the day?
The word of the day: just seek Jesus and be better today than you were yesterday.
Every day. Mr. Goff, again, thank you. And
Thank you,
definitely been an honor.